Twitter is a microblogging system designed to send and receive short posts called tweets. Tweets can be up to 140 characters long and can include links to relevant websites and resources. In today's society, the use of social media has become a necessary tool for functional communication. Social media is typically used for interaction and access to news and information, and which are the basic ingredients in decision making, both by governments and individuals. The global adaptation of Twitter makes a more valuable communication tool. Social media plays crucial roles in connecting people and developing relationships, not only with key influencers and media professionals, but also provides great opportunities for economic activities where both professional marketers and amateurs ply their trades. Political campaign and other advocacy messages have been found to be better or more effectively disseminated through the social media, as there seem to be no middleman between the originator of the information, education and communication material, but the initiator of the message and the target groups or persons. There is no tool more effective for gathering of feedbacks and reappraisal of policies, strategies, testing of new products and services than social media. Customer services worldwide rely heavily on social media by gathering inputs, answering questions, and listening to their opinions, reservations, and general criticism. Social media can be an awesome environment to encourage each other, communicate with people, and share stories. The medium also gives people chances to reconnect and keep up with old friends and those who live far away. It has become easier to connect with businesses, family, and friends. It has become a vogue for many corporate organizations to directly approach candidates through social networking sites like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and many other networking sites. The social media is open to be used for researches to improve professional careers. Unfortunately, on June 5th, 2021, the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria announced that its members had received and complied with instructions from the federal government to block access to Twitter. The state also directed all television and radio stations to stop using Twitter, which they described as unpatriotic.
The mission of Twitter in Nigeria is very, very suspect. As Twitter deleted the violent tweets that Nnamdi Kanu has been sending, has it? The same Twitter during the NSAS program that was funding NSAS protesters was the first to withdraw, to close the account of former president of US, Trump. We are not going to be fooled by anybody. We have a country to rule, and we'll do so to the best of our ability. Twitter's mission in Nigeria, what is the agenda? President's speech that anybody who is destroying infrastructure, who is destroying police service, INEC, that should be ready for the consequences. Is that inciting violence?
There are lots of people that depend on this microblogging platform to be able to make themselves heard and to be able to sell their products, and so many livings, livelihood derives from having to participate with Twitter. So it's already affecting Nigerians, but at the same time, we still have to look at the other side from this same social media platforms. They still have their own, the same thing. Sometimes they do accuse the government of is what they do. I'm a social media influencer. At times I wake up, I see my Facebook locked for a month. They will tell me I breach their community over one or two, certain criteria that I think is not even necessary. So the same way that the federal government has acted, which they feel that's the only language that these people can hear, is okay. But at the same time, there has to be a diplomatic, there has to be a diplomatic relations to end this whole impasse, because it's not as Twitter reacted to the president's tweet that the federal government should equally as react to that, because it has affected the citizens in whole lots of ways, and it has deprived so many of their livelihood. People like us today, our traffic, our reach, has depreciated. So it's something that we should look from both sides, both from the federal government, because they are talking of sovereignty, and they are talking of some issues which they say Twitter has been aiding, the division of the country and all that. So those are facts that we think we can be able to look into from both sides. But I believe the federal government overreacted by giving an outright ban to the microblogging platform without giving a better warning to them. But I believe diplomatic relations should be able to put an end to it.
This is democracy. Citizens will justifiably feel that their freedom of expression is being curtailed, because Twitter is a platform that is used by many people, especially young ones. And it gives the impression that our democracy is still not fully developed to the outside world. But again, we have to be sure that it's actually a tussle between freedom of information and the assertion of national sovereignty. And I believe Nigeria has the capacity to resolve it down the road.
The ban by the federal government on the use of Twitter in Nigeria is most unfortunate. It's something that in this modern era nobody can even think about. The only places where you find social media platforms being banned or discouraged, means of communication being banned or discouraged, are areas where you have dictatorship, places where the people are not free to express themselves. In Nigeria, freedom of expression is one of the things that is guaranteed by the constitution of this country. To me, it showed to me that at the level of leadership, those people who are there to advise Mr. President, very many of them are just there as figures without actually knowing the content of what their responsibilities are in advising Mr. President. It's something that is worth laughing at this time, when even presidents of the topmost countries of the world, prime ministers, the easiest way to get across with their people is through tweeting. So when you now say that you are banning Twitter in Nigeria, it means you are gradually taking us back to the dark ages. And I do not think that any president that is what is sought would want to take her citizens in this modern generation, when the world has gone beyond digital now. The world is now like a supersonic world. To now say you want to take us back to the dark ages. Whoever advised on that decision has shown total lack of respect for Nigerians. We are a country that exists in the Community of Nations, where the world right now is a global village, where communication is key in everything we are doing. And anybody trying to shut down any form of communication is not doing anything that is in the interest of us Nigerians. So I think that the ban, with the public outcry so far, I expect that a government that is responsive to the people by now should have come back to resign that decision. Because when you take a decision that is not in consonance with the dictates of good governance, the moment you see it, like they say vote populi, vote Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God, and the people have been reacting through different platforms. I think the president should resign that decision, so that whoever is the person or the persons involved in making that advice to him do not make worse a situation that is already bad.
Nigeria suspended Twitter after the social media site deleted a tweet by President Muhammadu Buhari that threatened secessionist groups in the southeast who had been responsible for attacks on government offices. The Information Minister, Lai Mohammed, at a news conference criticized Twitter's action and accused the social media giant of double standards. Lai Mohammed questioned Twitter's motives in Nigeria, saying the mission of Twitter in Nigeria is very, very suspicious. The minister noted that government took these steps because the platform was being used for activities that are capable of undermining Nigerians' corporate existence.
The ban on Twitter is the most inhumane, insensitive act by the federal government of Nigeria. You know, I wish they would attack banditry, kidnapping and raping the way they have attacked Twitter delete of their own tweets. So I don't even know if we, the youth, have a future in this country anymore. Because you know fit tell person wey you dey beat say make e not cry. They beat us for this country since. The only place where they feel they cry na social media. Now they say they won't carry our voice comot, and federal government una don do am. Where we dey now? Inside suffering, the rape continues, banditry continues, and there is anger. At the end of the day, you ask the average youth not to fend for himself, look for a way to make ends meet. Economically, it has started affecting the nation, because I read by facts the jobs of most Nigerians, most young stars have been taken away from them because of the Twitter ban. Now, what do you expect? We are going to have more youths on the streets. We're going to have crime rates increasing, and we're going to have a lot of anger spring out from these youths.
The ban on Twitter, to me, is very, very unwelcome. I think the federal government missed it at this point. Anyway, we are not surprised. There have been speculations of various bills being sponsored by the federal government to stop this social media news and information. We are quite aware that this administration seems not to be so comfortable with the freedom of the press, and they are not so comfortable with free speech, and as such they are looking for a way to ensure that they gauge up those information that freely come out of social media. To me, I'm not so happy about it. Twitter is one avenue that the citizens, majority of the youth, use for business. From there they can be able to connect and get more clients, and of course it's also going to have adverse effect on the Nigerian economy, because first and foremost it does not portray us in a good light before the international community. It's like we are still operating from the archaic world. I heard over the news that the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission is about to come up with a policy to guard up all media houses to ensure that they don't use the Twitter as well to get information. I think they said they are working by the rule of Section 2, Subsection 1 of the Broadcasting Act, that no media house should be allowed, by their own interpretation anyway, that they have the authority to ensure that no media house will be allowed to use the Twitter handle to get information. To me, it's very, very unwelcome. It goes a long way that our economy is going to be affected negatively. And I think the government should think twice for a reversal. And again, this sort of draconian law or policy, I think when this same president was in power during the military regime, there was this draconian law that also tried to stiffen the press. And I think he's not too comfortable with freedom of expression.
Federal government, from the office of the president, has placed a ban on Twitters. One, the reason why the president is of two things. 2 reasons. 1, because they use it for fraudulent acts, and 2, the president is also thinking that every information that is coming out from the country, they are relating it to the outside world negatively. And with all this, they want to place ban on it. 1, it has an effect. 1, the effect is that if the federal government is really doing their policy in a right perspective, no matter the information anybody will carry from you, you will not be afraid. And apart from placing ban, there are other social webs and all those other things that, apart from Twitter, Instagram and some other things, and even apart from the major one you are hearing, there are other hidden ones that they can also get information about the country and play it to the outside world. But what the federal government need to do, not placing ban on it, ensure you put your policy in a right perspective. When you are playing your role, you shouldn't be afraid of any information anybody want to carry about you. That is the issue. And for fraudulent acts, if they ban Twitters, that one does not still stop all this our youth to still embark on fraudulent acts. The issue is that government should put better policy in order. It is when idle mind is at work, that is where you see all these our youth, because they are not engaged. Graduates comes out from school not employed. These are the reasons why fraudulent act is eminent in the society. But my take on this is that federal government should ensure that things should be done well.
As part of measures to effect the ban of Twitter, the federal government ordered the arrest and prosecution of persons who violate it and use the suspended Twitter app. The nation's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, directed the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation at the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to swing into action and commence in earnest the process of prosecution of violators. In a statement signed on his behalf by his spokesman, Dr. Umar Jubrilu Gwandu, the Attorney General directed the country's communications regulator NCC and the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy to collaborate with prosecutors to ensure the speedy prosecution of offenders without any further delay. Twitter users in Nigeria expressed outrage at the blocking and decisions of the federal government that they have to criticize their government and give their opinion.
Well, Twitter has its own protocol. Maybe president of a country cannot be subjected to the rules that apply to the common run. Maybe a kind of warning, maybe a diplomatic channel to reach him will have been okay. So maybe Twitter taking that action in an abrupt way was embarrassing to the federal government, and dealing with the president of a country, it means the prestige of the country itself is at stake. So Nigeria kicking is actually asserting national sovereignty in that regard.
We've identified that some sources of income from the youths have been deprived, and not also that, we should still take note that Twitter stands to lose billions of dollars from shutting down their platform from Nigeria. So like I said, if Twitter wants it to degenerate to the situation whereby the youths will have to go into the streets, it will be very, very unfair from both parties. Twitter should think about their own financial benefits and their own gains, because they are helping people. Twitter is one of the means where Nigerians have been taken out of abject poverty into something else. It's a means that have exploded so many people. So from both ways, I think we should look into it, but it shouldn't degenerate into that. It should not. Twitter has their community, Nigeria has its own community. So it's something that they can be able to, come together and bridge. And the youths themselves, I should use this as a medium for the youths, that they should themselves start thinking of being an alternative to this government they complain of. The youth cannot be complacent and sit down, idle, doing nothing, and expect this government to change. The government cannot change. It's how they planned it to be. So until our youth start getting together to see that they can be the alternatives, then there's no two ways about it. 2023 is around the corner, and these people, all they do is just sit down on these different social media platforms and talk morning to night without putting any concrete stance. And these politicians, they are accused of trying to oppress the country. The populace are moving about, strategizing towards power. So I think the youth should still go more beyond, just shouting, ranting, or thinking of hitting the street anytime, to start putting actions into their ways by participating in the democratic process.
Every system has their own rules, and if you want to be part of a system, you must also confine yourself to the rules that is acceptable within the operational freedom that is provided by such bodies. And if anybody has violated their own rules and they choose following the terms laid out to sanction anybody, I think anybody can be sanctioned. Yes, so I do not see that as anything wrong that has been done by Twitter. And I also expect that people who advise Mr. President ought to have known better in advising and guiding him, because saying that you ban Twitter is a national embarrassment to us as a country, when there are countries that are not measurable to Nigeria and they have free access to social media and internet facility. Then we are talking about banning some means of communication in Nigeria this time. No, gone are the days. This is no more 1983 when you could impose decrees to want to shut down the press or any means of communication. So I don't think the Twitter handlers have done the wrong thing if you violated the prescribed rules for operating within their domain.
However, as much as Nigerians and all her allies over the Twitter ban were hauling verbal arsenals on the decision, the immediate past president of the United States of America, President Donald Trump, for the first time hailed Nigerian government for what he termed a bold step to tame undue media harassment by Twitter. Mr. Trump, who poured so much encomiums on President Muhammadu Buhari for his boldness to take the decision, however, expressed regrets that he could not muster such courage to act as such while in office. As all parties to the issue continue to flex their muscles, there seemed to be hope at the end of the tunnels. It was gathered that whereas the management of Twitter has expressed readiness to negotiate a return to business in Nigeria, the federal government has also not said it will not appear at the negotiation table. This is more plausible as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, has announced that he was strictly keeping the date of any possible unbanning of Twitter to his chest at a function in Lagos. Caroline Okonji on Special Reports.